I want to begin this first of the afternoon sessions, which is more of an infrastructure approach with power, ICT, and human capital, i.e. empowered women in business. And I want to thank Mr. Hamid for his wonderful talk before lunch, which sets up this panel on the ambitious plans for power production in Bangladesh. The moderator of this panel is Richard Wagner. He's a legal advisor, an expert in power and the energy sector, who is specialized in deregulation, development, and financing of energy for 30 years. He's helped independent power providers sell to public utilities. He's been an advisor to utilities in Egypt, India, and other countries. And he tells me that he first got involved in Bangladesh through Iqbal Kadir 20 years ago. So he has some knowledge of at least the state of play in Bangladesh historically. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here with such distinguished panelists and participating in the conference designed to accelerate economic progress in industry in Bangladesh. I learned, what?
Yes, it's working now.
It's working, okay. I learned a long time ago through Iqbal Kadir that there was great opportunity in Bangladesh that most Americans did not recognize was even possible. And I still think perhaps that story is not fully understood, but hopefully it will continue to be amplified by these proceedings and by those who are attending them. And hopefully also it will be a part of the story will very much be the accelerated growth in the power sector through the many positive steps that have been taken by the government and the ministry and the Prime Minister's office, as well as the private sector participants who are on this panel, who are talking in effect about the contribution the private sector can make to power growth. So without further ado, I'd like to briefly introduce each of the panelists. To my right is Mohammed Aziz Khan, chairman of the Summit Group of Companies, which is a leader in Bangladesh in the power sector, as well as in a number of other industrial sectors, as many of you know. He mentions, among other things, setting up the first independent power plant with Wärtsilä, Finland. I had the good fortune to represent El Paso Corporation in the earlier days. So I didn't do that particular transaction, but my colleagues did. So that was a very pioneering and successful project. And as he points out, they've grown many-fold in their participation in the megawatts of electricity, and they've developed since then and are now looking to do mega projects, I guess it would be fair to say, in the LNG area in particular, and very large-scale power plants. I also want to introduce Mr. Engineer Ghulam Muhammad Alamgir, who is the chairman of Max Group. This is a company that he started a number of years ago after 5 years working in the Middle East in power sector engineering, and is a case example of a Bangladeshi entrepreneur who has gone up through the ranks of EPC contracting and construction to be able to accomplish the construction of the EPC construction of both combined cycle and HFO fueled power plants. So we look forward to hearing more from his experience. And also to my left is Mr. Deepesh Nanda.
Right.
I'm sorry, my right. Deepesh Nanda, who is the CEO of GE Gas Power Systems in Asia, South Asia, and has been responsible for GE's very extensive business presence in Bangladesh, and will have much to say about their value of the role that they are able to play in developing Bangladesh's power sector. Also on the dais to my left is Mr. Rezwanul Rezwanul Kabir, Managing Director of Energy Pack Power Ventures Limited, an engineering firm that has actively been a participant and a leader in the engineering elements of major energy power sector and infrastructure projects, and will provide an invaluable perspective from that basis. So with that, I'd like to begin by asking perhaps each of the panelists to talk about how they found the opportunity to expand business that they were involved with into the power sector, and some of the initial challenges that they faced and overcame, and how it is that today those challenges are better managed by the new frameworks for development. So perhaps you'd like to start, sir?
Thank you very much. Before I start, I have a 10-second presentation which I would request them to start.
That's yesterday.
Yeah. So I brought it out not for my business, but because Bangladesh has arose. The conference is known as Bangladesh Rising, but I think Bangladesh has arose, and this is the beginning of another era, as had started in 1996 with the President Prime Minister as the then Prime Minister in 1996 with the private sector power generation policy. And I was very privileged to be able to implement that project and start the process of privatization of the power sector. Bangladesh has arose for many reasons. For the social infrastructure, while I've not been asked to talk about it, but Bangladesh has really beaten all its peers around in all the social infrastructures, be it education, be it mortality rate. Bangladeshis live the longest in the entire Indian subcontinent, which itself is an aspiration of every human being. So that way, Bangladesh provides that aspiration. And all other social infrastructure. In the physical infrastructure space, electricity has been phenomenal. The way the growth in the last 10 years, from 2008 to 2018, we have seen under the leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, under the leadership of the Honorable Minister sitting here, the then Secretary, Mr. Azad sitting over here, the phenomenal growth that we have seen in Bangladesh. This has been possible with the government provided regulations and foundations. The private sector power generation policy, the IPP policy.
And that's what I did within 2 years' time. But I never have gone to become the owner of 7-8 industries, 2 power plants, part of a bank, and then biggest contractor, and then biggest EPC power plant contractor, and so many other things. And all this happening because we have got independence through struggle, through freedom fighting, and we got opportunities. And only because the country is rising. I never thought the country will rise so fast, and I mean, in such a good pace. And that is why the local companies and local doers, local performers are performing and getting bigger and bigger. The present government came to power in last, before this term in 2009. The government decided how to make the country grow very fast. If you want a country to grow fast, you have to look into the infrastructure first. And if you want to do the infrastructure develop, you have to look into power sector first. So Honorable Prime Minister correctly decided to put the electricity for everybody as far as possible with a process called quick renter powers. And that time I remember Our Honorable Abul Kalam Azad sir was Secretary of Power at that time, and it was a special period. Within four months, we have signed to give power, and we have delivered it. Believe me, I never thought in my life that I'll become the owner of a power plant. It was just out of my imagination. Now, I have to believe that I have got 2 power plants of my own. It's just because the country is rising, country is developing. And we all can imagine now, it's a reality. Where are this country is going in next 10, 20 years? And we firmly believe it, and we need the leadership, and we have the correct leadership at the moment. Last 10 years, I will say last 20 years, GDP was having growth of 5% steadily. And although all over the world there was a disruption in GDP growth, Bangladesh never faced that disruption. Continuously growing, and especially in the last 2 years, I believe, it has exceeded 7%. And I can assure you, as a business people, I am not an advocate for the government. I am a business community. I am the private sector people. We are the private sector people who are really driving the country, driving the economy, and bringing the country forward with the help of the government and the desire of the government. We have a prime minister who is not a politician only. I will say, as engineer, when engineers go to them on any project, she evaluates correctly, modify the project, and she directs that project to implement in time. So she's like a project manager, she's like engineer, she's a planner, and she is a prime minister. So I think with this leadership, and I mean, we have no way to go back. I mean, whatever be the politics, whatever be the government, the country will go. Country will go what? I mean, every year. I have a passport actually, which I don't enjoy carrying and showing to America or Europe at the moment. But I can guarantee, if I can live the next 15, 20 years, I can guarantee this passport will have a different value. And people from Europe may go and try a passport from Bangladesh after 2027.
Very good.
For Americans who have not visited Bangladesh, message for them. You see, in our office, we don't have to go to nowadays to foreigners to attract them. They come to us nowadays. That's the situation we enjoy now at the moment. Every day I get foreign people, European people. When I see a person, am I exceeding the time limit?
Well, go ahead. No, I think.
Okay, I will take one more minute?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So my first question I asked to Europeans and Americans, have you ever come to Bangladesh? Is it first time? When they say first time, I said, okay. From today, the moment you plan to come, what was your imagination about the country, and what do you find today after reaching the country? He said, believe me, Alamgir, it's different than what I'm seeing today. So I will request everybody to know Bangladesh correctly, because we are not branded properly actually. We are not branded properly. We are far better than what you hear. We are much more better. It's a place where investment are secured. I am an investor. I have invested in 2 power plants. I have never seen my payments are coming at least 1 month delayed. Every month, monthly payments are coming as per the agreement. The payments, Bangladesh government has a unique character.
30 days of within billing.
Sir?
Within 30 days of billing.
Yes, within 30. It's coming.
It's not delayed.
Delayed.
Within 30 days of billing.
Oh, right, sir. Right, sir. No, it's not delay. I mean, it's a process. We have to go through the process.
Right.
It's a delay.
No, it's not.
No.
It's within the
Obligation
contract.
is to give it
So,
within-
right, sir.
Right. With you have 30 days.
So
right.
Bangladesh government never fails with the investors' payments. or G2G payments or foreign payments. We don't have this identity. We have never failed, government never failed. So I welcome you to go and invest in Bangladesh. I will invite especially our Bangladeshi engineers, intellectuals, scientists. Leave America, leave Europe, please go to Bangladesh. We have enough to do. We have enough to do there. And I heard one person was working here as a contractor, maintenance contractor. He has a hesitation. He was asking some question. Look, you cannot be double-minded. If you want to decide to go to Bangladesh, please go. I can assure you, you will be successful, provided you are dedicated and sincere on your business and commitment. You have one leg in Boston and one leg in Dhaka, that will not work. So, put your heart and soul inside in your job back in Bangladesh, and you will be successful, I can assure you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. That was very inspiring. Being paid on time is something business people like. Would you like to speak, Mr. Kabir, about your experience?
Oh, thank you very much. I think I'm put in a very tough job. All the speakers were so nice, and after lunch, I think they made you delighted. You never felt sleepy. And finally, Mr. Alamgir actually covered 2 segments. I think he should speak in FDI. In other way, people should go back to Bangladesh and invest. Not only Bangladeshis, but from all over the country, all over the world. I'll just start with one thing that, power, we are from power sector. Power was once very politically talked subject, maybe 10 years back. And maybe all of us remember quick rental issues. But we always forgot the economic value of power. When quick rental came in, we heard that the economic value of power was standing like something like 16 taka, 18 taka. And there was a lot of, from civil society to opposition, a lot of talk about that. But now, we absolutely forgot that subject, and we are enjoying very quality power. The other day, I heard that the economic value of per kilowatt of power now at 46 taka or something like that. And after having all this presentation today, I understand how important power is for all of us, and how important power is for all other industries, especially the 100 EZs we are thinking of, and the SDG goals we are talking about. Everything related with power, and very reliable power. And I'm very humbled to say, and especially I'm really, really privileged to be standing on the same dais where Mr. Aziz Khan is here. I always think that this is the company we think of to be achieve in some days. And there are many companies in Bangladesh. There's excellent performance in terms of compliance, in terms of efficiency, excellence. And we hope that with some of other companies like Square and others, they will cross our border and establish a global footprint. So this is all about Bangladesh, that Bangladeshi companies are now getting out of border and they are creating their presence elsewhere. From Energy Pack, maybe you don't know much, many of you don't know much about Energy Pack. We are actually present in many segments of power, starting from very low voltage to the medium voltage to the extra high voltage. We have footprints being an IPP, independent power producers. We have footprint being an EPC as well. And we are expanding in energy sector. I believe the prospects we have as a country, we need to improve our capacity, we need to build capacity, and for that, government, the way supported power plants, especially the IPPs, I think there should be some support for the EPCs, because end of the day, good EPCs or even the subcontractors, they will help build the big extra big power plants coming in the long-term basis. And you see so much of investment are required, as Power Minister talked about, if I'm not wrong, 86 or $82 billion over next 5-10 years. you need to have a pool of engineers and pool of workers, technicians. And for that, I think if there is some fiscal incentive for the EPCs, that will be very helpful to grow the basis. Of course, the other issues we are talking about, we are getting into LNG, we are getting into coal. These are costly commodities. And if you look at coal, transporting coal from the source you buy it and from the source you generate power, there's a lot of logistics and a lot of technical issues are involved. If you lose some grams, if you lose some percentage, that will directly hit your power generation cost. For example, many of us are now doing HFO-based power plants, and eventually that's I think that's the share is almost 40%. And if you look at, there's a very innovative PPA from the government side, because fuel supply, there's no gas supply agreement or there's no fuel supply agreement. That's directly coming to the IPP, on the IPP shoulder. So we have taken a fold and we are taking that risk. Still, we are managing the supply chain very nice way. Altogether, 40% is a huge thing. And that 40% is actually coming from more than 40 power plants. So private sector has gone far away having this opportunity. In future, when the opportunity will come in terms of LNG, in terms of coal, I think private sector is ready, and especially Summit has set example, and there are a few companies or many companies, they will definitely follow Summit and come up, and I think that will help build Bangladesh capacity very well. I'll just want to add two things that I didn't hear anything about our indigenous coal and maybe the offshore blocks or our augmentation of our onshore blocks. We still believe that we have enough resources of natural gas. Of course, the blending price with LNG will have some economic value, and how we're going to tackle that, that will be an issue where government has some idea about cost of power generation will be the selling price of the power to the people, so there will be no subsidy, or to reduce the subsidy to 1% or something like that. There's some more SDG agendas are there. So we didn't hear about these two things for some times. I hope ministry is definitely thinking of that. And if there is any good news of our indigenous source of fuel, that will be really, really a very, very good luck for Bangladesh. And I think the country itself is very much prepared to take it forward, even though we have a lot of challenges in the power sector. But at the end of the day, the success of power sector will give support to many other sectors, and this is a unique example of private-public cooperation model, and especially the way ministry and government bureaucrats are helping the business. I think if other sectors just copy that, that will be something for Bangladesh to go through and definitely look for a very, very developed economy very soon. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know we're running a little bit behind, so I'm going to keep the questions to a bit of a minimum, but I did want to ask Mr. Khan to comment on his experience with capital raising in the capital markets, and how does he see that evolving, and how important does that piece play in, what a role it plays in the large-scale development?
Thank you very much. Not an easy question to answer, especially in the backdrop of our withdrawing the application to list for some time. But I think it's an opportunity to explain that to perhaps the Honorable State Minister primarily, and to the BIDA Chairman, both of whom are sitting here. One of the aspects of generation of electricity or supply chain management of the entire energy, from primary energy to distribution of electricity, is perhaps the most capital intensive sector in the whole of Bangladesh, from provisioning of the primary energy to the distribution of electricity. And in that space, capital shortages are certainly a major hindrance for the development. So we found out that the nearest place where the world plays and can provide capital is through the Singapore Stock Exchange, SGX main board. So that's where we we are planning to list, and we had actually received the ETL, entitlement to list, and then we had lodged to receive the funds. But unfortunately for us, a couple of days before our actual transaction, the rhetorics or the Twitter war between the United States and China started on this trade war, or everybody putting taxes on each other's commodities, and the market tanked. And when the market tanked, it was impossible to get the focus of the large funds that were all committed to place in Bangladesh's first international exchange. And that's a matter of luck. So we have just delayed the process. We will go into it, but allowing the market to settle down, and the volatility, as they call it, the VIX, which has moved up to 30, 35, usually, in the opinion of the three banks, the DBS, UBS, and Citi, who are our issue managers, should be below 15 for us to get focus of the international investors listening to a news story, rather than their own books where they're losing money or making money. So that is the situation on that. But Bangladesh's respectability has come up to such that the private sector as well as the government can definitely think about bonds, as well as raising funds in various other ways in the international market. The context has changed. Bangladesh has arose, as I mentioned before, and the private sector of Bangladesh has, under the allowance provided by Bangladesh Investment Development Authority, as well as the Prime Minister's office, and all around the power division itself, has provided a huge understanding in the international community that how important Bangladesh is. So I think we are at that point where we will see a huge increase in foreign direct investment, as well as takeovers, as well as mergers and acquisitions within Bangladesh, and we will see a very robust market. The other aspect that has really played well for Bangladesh is, as we all know, that democracy and free market economy perhaps moves hand in hand. The country has now proven for a long time a democratic process, and in December we have an elections. I think after the elections there would be even more recognition of a continuing political system taking a strong roots into Bangladesh, and along with it, that the allowance that the government has provided for a free market economy for the private sector to develop, which is well explained by Rizwan when he says that there are about 40 independent power producers. 40 independent power producers, I don't think that there are that many power producers in India, or certainly not in Pakistan. India is a very large country, so I don't know the numbers. But nowhere there is such expansion of the private sector. A little bit of personal satisfaction and company satisfaction. Only in the last 9 months, we have completed a 300 megawatt power plant in 9 months. And this is a world record. And you would all be able to see it very soon at the Guinness Book of Records, that a 300 megawatt power plant can be implemented within 9 months. I have another great person sitting over here, Mr. Tapan Chaudhary, who was our advisor, energy and power, and in the rank of a minister. During his currency as the advisor also, through international tender, we had received 120 megawatts, which was all that was tendered for, and he was one person who said that since they are the lowest, irrespective of the chairman's place of residence, they should get it, because at that time I was not in Bangladesh. And those were also implemented on time. Dr. Chaudhary had come to open them immediately thereafter. So I think this hand-in-hand progression of the private sector and the democracy would enable Bangladesh, all the other Bangladeshi good companies with good corporate governance, would be able to go to the international market. I personally feel, with the Honorable Advisor, Dr. Moshiur Rahman, being here, a little bit of more freedom in the foreign exchange sector is necessary. The currency is within 55,000 square mile. It should be allowed to move around in a free market economy. Such such foreign exchange regulations act as we have today are outdated in my personal view. Thank you, sir.
I just want to quickly comment that I totally agree with the statements made about Bangladesh acquiring, in effect, a reputation that has crossed a tipping point now with the international community for both reliability of payment, relative political stability, and the designing of policies that have staying power and will not be retrenched by the next election. Because we all know that's been a problem in other countries. I was involved in probably the best of its day project in Egypt, the Sidi Career project, which set a template for lowest cost and speed of execution. However, and that program was a beautiful program, but within 3 projects, it tanked because of instability and financial fundamentals. So, and I'm sure, by the way, that your offering will find its way back. You crossed again a major threshold with the list with the ETN with the
ETL, yeah.
ETN. So that makes tremendous. It's a tremendous milestone, and I'm sure it will be repeated. The last question, perhaps, unless anyone has something they want to volunteer, is what remaining, perhaps, improvements? We've heard of several of them, but are there anything else that might really help this power sector, and any comments on diversified sources beyond, I think we've talked about most of them, but any other thoughts on diversification of source?
Okay, good. It's because I'm a businessman anyway. All my time has to be business oriented. That helps my business. Because we are one of the biggest construction company in Bangladesh, not only power plant, railway, we are number 1 in Bangladesh, bridges, flyover, power plants. Lot of department already has, in international tender, has put the clause of domestic preference. Our humble request for growing the local EPC, if Honorable Minister circulates that all tenders should have domestic preference, and it is nothing against ADB or World Bank guideline. Procurement policy allows that, and most of the country has done it. So that only they have grown. So unless you create local capacity to make power plants, it will not be sustainable. So to make, and it will be cheaper also. So at least we 2 EPC companies are sitting here, and there are other lot of people who will come and grow. So like the power sector is growing, you need growing EPC capacity, local capacity. That's what we want, your support, kind support, so that we can grow in that sector. And you see, initially, investors are only from Bangladesh community. Foreign fund are not. GE, USA, Siemens, they are coming on billions of dollars now. That time they did not come. We were the poor people who had to put our own money.
Yes.
And we were paid well, actually. And the rate was very good. So we took the risk and we were paid. We made our money that time. Now it's a little tough. But anyway, I mean, I'm telling the truth.
I'd like to answer.
Always moves with the big people.
I'd like to answer your question on improvement. Please complete. Sir.
Now, you know, and you did not touch. My 3 power plants all purchased from GE US. And the last month was the combined cycle one, 163 megawatt. It's a total island from GE. And let me take the opportunity. We shared, this power plant is going to be such a power plant. Ajay, please excuse me.
No, please.
You are the guru actually. He's our boss of this decision. But my power plant, he is going to bring other customers from outside Bangladesh to show my plant, how decently it is organized and placed and decorated. So it's going
Best
to-
practices.
Fantastic, and completely local EPC, local capacity. Of course, I had to hire individuals from various disciplines, various countries, but it's a local EPC and fantastically done.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just take another minute or two. We did 3 large projects for Max Power as well. Again, the same entrepreneurial spirit. Decision making happens across the table on the spot. That kind of reflects the confidence that, again, the investor has in terms of the market, the government, and so on. But in terms of improvement, you'll be interested to know that we're building a state-of-the-art 585 megawatt combined cycle power plant for the Summit Group with a single gas turbine called the 9H gas turbine. And since there was mention made of the Guinness Book of World Record for fast commissioning of a recent project, so this particular turbine holds the Guinness Book of World Record currently. The first time we did that was in France for EDF. Last month we did it in Japan. And I'm on record, it's been recorded on camera, that the plant that we do for Summit, when you take a meter and you check the efficiency, I think that has a very high potential of being the world record when it gets commissioned. This will be at the cutting edge of technology. So we're talking of 62% plus conversion of energy to electricity.
Great.
And this is to say that Bangladesh is getting the latest and greatest from the international community. It's a matter for all of us to feel happy about and to celebrate.
I think that I will accept.
Yeah, I would just,
Can I add
go ahead.
2 minutes? I'm sorry, I'll talk about a little bit different subject because I felt that coming into the city of Harvard and MIT, I shouldn't forget talking about that. We used to support Summit, we manufacture transformer switch gears as well. And we used to support Summit. Every of their Summit plants have our transformer switch gears. But when they switched to combined cycle, we actually lost that opportunity because we couldn't switch to that level. So you people are here, you are practicing the cutting edge technology, and you are doing your research here, but you should know that there are some fields, there are some opportunity creating in Bangladesh where you can also come up with your research work. We manufacture transformer switch gears and we export it outside of Bangladesh. Even in India, there are some establishment I know which is owned by Indian defense people. Still they had our transformers. We are affiliated in Indian Public Works Department. We have a lot of export to Africa through Indian contractors in Dubai and other places. So we need to add our values. And we are hiring consultants from Europe, from Germany, from Italy. Quite a few transformer big factories are actually stopped in Europe. And we are hiring their consultancy services. We have small pockets, we have small offices in Europe. So we'll be very much fascinated that if any of you guys from academia are interested to look at the research what you are having, and if that can improve the quality of products we manufacture in Bangladesh, that will be helpful. In fact, when we produce 1 kilowatt of power, it eventually gets into 3.5 to 4 kilowatt of power when it's being transmitted and distributed. So, and that's the way the common people get test of power. So it's very important for the aftermarket products and conversion products to be upgraded. And we hope to catch up Summit again with our upgraded products with the help of you guys. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Well, I think we should wrap up. I just want to make one comment about the outstanding progress that has been made and what stands out to me from very large international experience, and that is the speed of execution as well as the quality of execution is very impressive, and it's critical in the power sector because so capital intensive these plants are, they must start paying back quickly. And so the government, by facilitating the speed of execution, and the private sector by making that happen, do a tremendous service to the country because that's what makes the whole thing pay. It's these very long delays that have happened in some of the other countries that have caused mega problems with cost escalation, with delay in revenue, and so on. So, anyway, thank you both. Thank you all very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience, for listening.